Hierophant. This card is one I've always been skeptical of. I despise the church and its patriarchy. Has any institution done more harm, either directly or through its allowances? Nothing worse than an abusive, dominating force that believes itself to be backed by God. No horror too great, no depravity too terrible for the kingdom of heaven. So when I saw my first Hierophant in the Robin Wood Tarot, with a pope and his young servants bowing at his feet, I felt disgust. Form over function was the associated words. To forget the function of ritual and simply follow the form of it. Is there anything more descriptive of modern religion? Looking at the Catholic Church, whose Savior Jesus railed against the rabbinical priests of his time and preached that we don't need to buy goats from these assholes to commune with God. We can simply break bread with our friends, no matter who they are. Contrast that against the gilded, opulent ritual of the Catholics. It's hard to imagine that they weren't corrupted by the devil in the 3rd century and have never recovered. The form of their ritual forget all function. They perform the rites and then systematically rape children, murder indigenous people, and turn a blind eye to genocide. So fuck the Hierophant and all he stands for, the corrupt and wicked idiot, the devil in white robes and silly hat. That was until I met the Hierophant in the Brady Tarot. The Hierophant is the 5th card of the Major Arcana. Coming after the Empress and Emperor, the Hierophant is the 5th element of spirit, often called the Pope, which is a particular application of the most general office that he symbolizes, according to Edward Waite. The Hierophant holds the keys to the institution of the esoteric, where his counterpart, the High Priestess, holds the hidden inner knowledge of the esoteric. The word Hierophant comes from the Greek word Hierophantis, meaning one who reveals sacred things. It is derived from hieros, sacred, and phantein, to show or reveal. Traditionally depicted as holding the triple scepter representing mastery over body, mind, and spirit, the Hierophant is inviting you to be initiated into something old. He is not interested in change or innovation. This is not a card that calls for something new, but adherence to something ancient. If you are to enter his order, he will turn you towards tradition. In a word, conformity. I was born breech, inverted against tradition from the very beginning. I am queer and align with the anarchists who rattle against all the prison bars of the status quo and the trappings of tradition, where I rarely find myself represented. It is no wonder I bristle at he who demands adherence, who bars the door to all who refuse to conform. When I met Brady's Hierophant, the peregrine falcon, who soars between heaven and earth, and who carries the many symbols to paths of divinity, I started to understand the upright meaning of the card. In honesty, I was also confronting the immature and automatic rejection of conformity. Sometimes the well-trod path is that way for a reason. I could begin to see why one might demand that the form of a ritual be followed. I began to see into the depths of time while listening to the religious rites spoken over traditional food on sacred holidays. These prayers, which have been spoken the same way over the same food for thousands of years, connect us to something deep in our collective history. It is a very individualist and colonized mind who demands they be allowed into the sacred center without having to put in the work. The Hierophant has an important job to keep the secrets of divinity from those who will not show those secrets the reverence they deserve. It is not elitism, but protection for both the secrets of divinity and to the foolish seeker who wishes to have without earning. Someone needs to keep the keys to divinity and be judicious about handing them out. I have since come to realize that sometimes the form is the function. We step with our left foot first. We face the east. We do this or that just so, simply because that is how it is done. The Hierophant is a bridge between the divine and the earth. Like the falcon, he moves between worlds, taking our prayers to heaven and the divine knowledge of heaven back to the disciples on earth. He reaches back through time into the forgotten past and returns with what is necessary for us in the present. I was, however, not wrong to be skeptical. We live in a world of false prophets and charlatans and grifters. We must guard ourselves against structurally unsound bridges over troubled water, bridges to nowhere, or worse. You'd be wise not to trust those who claim heaven lies behind a gate with a key only they possess. Here lies the contradiction and reversal of the Hierophant. You must submit to an authority whose very nature is to keep the secret from you until such time as you have proven that you are ready for the secret. This is the pattern of cults. But all orders are cults, aren't they? It is up to you to determine which are harmful and which are not. You are wise to be slow to trust when over and over we find that those who hold the mantle of Hierophant are abusing their disciples. More abstractly, the Hierophant represents conformity. Society is constantly pressuring us to be a certain way. So much of this pressure is antisocial and against our human nature. It is challenging to parse what is good advice and what is misguided nonsense. Right now, we see the normalization of genocide and ecocide. Conformity can very well mean abandoning your inbuilt morality. Yet, if we do away with all conformity, we fall into the trap and false ideology of individualism. To abandon social norms makes you a terrible asshole or an insufferable prick. I believe this is why we meet the High Priestess first in our fool's journey. She reminds us that magic and the divine are self-evident. They are not behind a locked door, but a veil that anyone can move aside. She teaches us about intuition and self-knowing. She teaches us to turn into and trust the vibe. So that once you reach the Hierophant, be him mentor, a group, or a tradition, you can trust your intuition to guide you. I understand that trusting your intuition might not be available to some. I do have some practical advice. The first is that in any group, look at how they treat women and children. You can safely throw out the ideologies that put men over women and children. You can be skeptical of patterns of patriarchy where only men can lead. Sometimes this just comes with the territory and can be set aside. It took thousands of years for the patriarchy to infect these practices, and it'll take them a long time to heal from it. Also, be careful not to mistake an honoring of men and women's separate work as necessarily patriarchal. Next, consider where the Hierophant stands. Is it in the limelight? The Hierophant leads but is not the center of attention. He might perform the ritual, but the ritual is not about him. Look for the servant leaders, he who holds power for the benefit of his disciples, not for his or her own enrichment. Finally, remember that mentorship is a relationship built on mutual respect. The teacher and the student both have something to learn from each other. They are both in service of each other. Never accept abuse or domination, even if that's the way it's always been. When the Hierophant shows up in your reading, consider what wisdom they have for you and what you will have to do to earn that wisdom. The card can indicate a need for discipline, or dedication. If you're considering joining a cult or another fun club, an upright Hierophant will probably suggest you move forward with that decision. Are you looking at a choice? This card suggests seeking counseling or guidance, especially from our elders and ancestors. Perhaps it is time to reach out for a mentor or take on a pupil. You are being asked to step into the masculine role of teacher, healer, or caregiver. If you decide to work with reversals, you might consider the card as pointed inward. What inner wisdom is present? What discipline can you exercise within your own psyche? A more common way to read reversals is as an inversion of the force or the shadow of the upright card. Where our upright Hierophant is trustworthy, the inverted mentor is not to be trusted. He warns you not to lose yourself in the form of something while you miss its function. Is your spiritual practice stealing someone else's sage? Is it appropriating someone else's form? Are you filling in last minute to an ayahuasca ceremony led by an amateur and mistitled shaman without doing the dieta? Are you trusting someone who has not attended to their body, mind, and spirit, much less mastered them? The inverted Hierophant is out of alignment, ungrounded, power-hungry, and manipulative. Is this your motivation too? Underneath the silk robes and golden scepter of your more holy and righteous stories, this unaligned master might poison the cards around him and lead them astray. He warns you of societal pressure and makes you wonder if you are being manipulated by authority. Remember, tradition can sometimes just be the misguided peer pressure of the dead. Not all holy ghosts are to be listened to. So, be curious about your relationship to this card and his authority. What does it bring up for you? The Pope, religion, institutions, forbidden knowledge, hierarchy, power, and the disciplined access to divinity.